Okay, recording the fourth text. Why not? The second game does introduce the topic of food that is not hunted directly. Food prepared, like burgers and fries, for example. Burgers and fries in Witchy World, they feed a lot of different characters. We also see characters speaking of buying food, not hunting it, or preparing a meal in a way that means food that is handled in some way, not directly harvested. A worm sandwich instead of just eating worms, says Canary Mary, for example, or a bag of millet instead of just millet from the ground. Bottles eats a cooked fish on a plate. Instead of stories of hunting, animals hunting others, there is food that is ready. The game doesn't focus on obtaining the food as a solitary endeavor. People prepare food for one another, sell food for one another, gather together to eat food, as dinner in Bottles' house or the Oogle Boogles. There are people relationships. This game doesn't focus on hunting, but on the interactions between people once the food has been ready. So, selling it, buying it, taking it away, sharing it. In the second game, the crucial thing about feeding is the social relationships between people. People get food from other people. If there is a social world, there is feeding. If the characters are alone, they struggle to feed. Whereas in Banjo-Kazooie, the idea is evoked that characters are hunting. It is precisely individuality, not sociality, that feeds them. In that game, there are if there are other people, right, in the first game, they can be killed to hunt. The more alone you are, the more likely it is you'll be the one eating others and not eaten. Perhaps in the first game, food is about the individual, and in the second game, it's about the collective. At first glance, this is different from what we were saying. The first game, I said, was about Grunty wanting to be accepted by society. The second game was her wanting to be her old self, regardless of what others thought. However, she wanted to be her old self, right, regardless of what other people wanted in the second game. However, in the first game, Grunty does seek this goal on her own. She has a minion, but she's the main decision maker. Her acceptance by society is sought by herself as an individual. So in Tui, her individuality as her old self, her individuality is sought in cooperation with her sisters. They have built a machine for her. They suggest what she should do to use it, how to operate it, and they rescue her too. So Grunty's plan for individuality in this game is conducted collectively with her social group. Tutti also, in the first game, wants adventure. She wants to do something new and exciting, not something that has already been done before. She wants adventure, so she wants stuff that has not yet been discovered and charted out by others. She wants to do stuff that no other in society has told her about. She wants, in a sense, absolute individuality, to be herself and to do what comes to her. Tutti is Grunty's victim in the first game, a victim sacrificed for Grunty to be whoever society wants her to be, we could say. Bottles is the primary victim for Grunty in Banjo-Tooie. I mean this because he is the character who propels Banjo and Kazooie's adventure forward, like Tutti. Bottles wants to play cards in an orderly way, get home in time for dinner. Kazooie in Banjo-Tooie wants to break the rules, do things no one has told her to do. Bottles wants to follow the rules established by the group, follow the rules established by his family about when to have dinner, etc. This socially abiding person is the victim for Grunty's quest in trying to follow her own self, her own desires, and not those of society. So, like, the roles are inversed or something. In the first game, death is about obtaining life, feeding. Enemies are named. The enemies in the first game are named after munchers, snackers, etc. They eat and devour. In Banjo-Tooie, enemies are almost entirely about wielding weapons. They are people with clubs, people who beat you with a weapon or shoot at you with a weapon. They attack with no visible intention of eating you, just of using a weapon against you to destroy. It seems to be more about, in Banjo-Tooie, about a death that brings no more than the desire to kill, not the desire to feed off the killed victim. Grunty, too, kills Bottles simply because she wanted to kill Banjo and Kazooie. It's not about feeding off them or draining some life from them, like she did from Tootie, her previous victim, or like she does from the Jinjo King, for example. Right? No, here in Banjo-Tooie, she just wants to kill because she feels like it. Right? She kills Bottles because they tried to kill her. It's just about animosity, hatred. It's just about her social relation with Banjo, not about food. So in Banjo-Tooie, the enemies also are about killing for killing's sake, or for hatred, dislike of the characters they kill. Like so, bringing life, eating, seems to be more centered around getting a family together, getting a group together, creating bonds with others, than it is about feeding the body, perhaps. There are so many examples of characters who have dinners, and somehow they are all more focused on the gathering between them and the family than about the actual food sometimes. Right? Food here is about feeding or bringing vitality, not to the physical body, but to the relations between the body and its environment, the other people around them, strengthening a sort of sense of society in Banjo-Tooie. There is an issue of war in this game too, or of struggle. Jam Jars prepares us as if we're going to fight. We're learning moves the way someone learns to fight in a war, by a general teaching us how to use our weapon. But are we at war? What is war? Perhaps someone feeling bad towards other people. Groups of people can come together to eat dinner together, get together, mingle, play cards, or they can come together in a clash as violence, war between them. The Jinjo King speaks of this issue. A great rivalry exists between the Jinjos and the moles. This rivalry seems to be pretty intense. This rivalry is kept under control by transforming it into a game, a kickball tournament, which helps Jinjos and moles dissolve their hatred into a form of social activity. If this game didn't exist, as the Jinjo King fears, it could mean a chaotic turn of events. Like the Jinjo King fears that the tournament could not exist this year because everyone's disappeared, right? So it could mean a chaotic turn of events for the rivalry between the moles and the Jinjos. This game doesn't exist for several reasons in Banjo-Tooie. The Jinjos have been lost, right? As I said, their families have been spread apart. And also, Bottles has been killed, and he participates in these games, as does King Jingling, I assume. These conditions have been met. It is likely that the game couldn't be done, and so the rivalry would express itself in an antisocial way in this game, as a warlike way or a destruction of social bonds. That is what is assumed, what the king says. So, death in this game perhaps is the death of the caring bonds between members of the group, and life is the vitality of the group as an experience, people caring for one another in some way or form. In the first game, life was the life of the individual, regardless of whether others lived or died. And death was the death of one individual, regardless of what others did. So in the first game, Tootie in the first game is trapped in a cage. She wants adventure, but she is trapped in a metal cage. She would like to flee this cage and go on an adventure, be untied from this limitation that keeps her trapped. Her struggle here is to go outside, out of the condition she's in materially here, this material cage. Bottles, however, is not trapped. He's the opposite. He's sort of free. Tiny wings sprout from his back, and he flies out of his body, of any boundedness to a material condition. He is free. He has no limitations, in this sense, with time or the material world. His problem is how to get back into the world, back into the material limitations he has been freed from. He wants to be in the world, limited by the rules of the game of cards, by the rules of his friends. He wants to follow those rules and live peacefully with the people he loves, or so I guess. The issue in Banjo-Tooie for him, I think, is to enter. The issue is to enter into the material world, escape the world of ghosts or spirits, disconnected from the world. In the first game, Tutti is trapped in a cage and wants to escape, to do things others tell her she can't do, to be more in touch with her spirit, her ghost, the spirit that is her own personality, her soul. She is moving into a closer relationship with her soul, and less of a relationship with the limitations of the world. What did I say here? Okay, so Tutti, she is moving in Banjo-Kazooie into a closer relationship with her soul. That's what she wants. Go on an adventure. To move more into that way and less of a relationship with the limitations of the world, which here we could say is her cage, this cage she's trapped in. Another issue, however, is that what limits Tutti is Grunty's ownership of her kidnapping. She is not just limited by a material cage. It is the social relationship she has with Grunty, which it's a relationship she does not want to engage in and where she can't really express herself. It is a relationship between her soul and Grunty's soul, in some sense, that keeps her trapped. Also for Bottles, it is not just his freedom from the body that keeps him disconnected from the world. It is we could say, the material relationship he had with Grunty. The fact that she killed him with a weapon, with an actual material blast of energy or whatever, which has put him in this situation. He is in this situation not just because of an abstract issue of souls and relationships, but also because of material conditions, weapons, blasts, fire, burning, which have caused his self to become estranged from his material conditions. The first game perhaps is about transitioning from the material world to the world of soul, of spirit. As we said, it seems like the game is about going from life to death, from eating a body and killing it to obtain its death and your own life, feeding from it. Material world, or living physical life, transitioning to the world of spirit or immateriality, to the world of death. Okay, so just a second. Let's read that again. So the first game is material world or living physical life, transitioning to the world of spirit or immateriality, to the world of death, right? Food getting eaten, bodies getting eaten and dying and going into the spirit world. That's the first game. For Grunty, this is a process of distancing herself from her material world and into a world of relationship to the world, of prioritizing relationship, the relationship of being loved by others, in a sense, by a community, by others, her peers, everyone around her. She lets go of her material world, her old body, in order to give value to her relationships, something less. She prioritizes something less material in this case, such as love, caring, being socially alive instead of materially alive. That's what Grunty wants in this first game. For Tutti, this is another issue. For her, to move from the material to the spirit seems to mean to precisely disconnect from the social bond that has put her in a cage. The cage being certain material conditions she doesn't like, right? So she wants to disconnect from that and then instead be free to explore her own soul, her own self, her desires, a less material world of, again, desires, curiosities, self. That's what Tutti wants. So for Grunty and Tutti, this transition is different, but they both perhaps want the same transition, to go from matter to spirit. However, the conditions are different in both. Okay, let's see. So for this reason, the top of spiral, the top of the spiral, is about transitioning towards Grunty and her mouth. You will be devoured by her, and stop being a material body, being instead spiritual nourishment. You will be instead spiritual nourishment for her life. The bottom half of the spiral spirals down towards death. Right? It spirals down towards death and a transition from death to life, therefore. Right? From death, then you go to life. Bottles, in this second game, wants to stop being a ghost, stop being dead, and start being alive. He wants to transition from the world of soul, of spirit, to the world of matter. Right? In this case, in the second game. So these two games are different. In fact, perhaps here the issue is different. In the case of Bottles, speaking about him for a second, he doesn't want anything. He seems to be devoid of desire, Bottles, or awareness. He is perhaps... also, this is assuming, again, that the top of the spiral is what is associated to the first game, as I said, and the bottom of the spiral sort of associated to the second game, descending down. In this case, this descending down towards death, which then connects back to life. And so here the issue is that Grunty wants this transition. She wants to transition. She wants this transition from life to death in some way. And Bottles doesn't, because he's not aware of this. It's not his desire to be had in some way. So we could say that Bottles doesn't, in the second game, Bottles doesn't want anything, really. He's just dead. He seems to be devoid of desire or awareness. He is perhaps disconnected from the material world so much that he has no sense of time or space, right? In fact, upon resuscitating, he indeed has no idea what has happened, where, when, for how long, etc. Right? He checks his watch and everything. So he didn't want anything during his state of death. He didn't want to resuscitate or not resuscitate, to go to dinner at home or to not go. He is sort of devoid of all that. Who wants him home is his family. Who want him back are, in this case, in the second game, his friends. Right? The desire is felt from the inverse perspective. It is others who want him back with them. So they struggle to bring him back. It's not him who wants this. For Grunty, she also wants to go from... I mean, who knows if it's him who wants this, but let's say that in the game it is expressed more as a desire felt by his family looks after him, his friends looks after him, they want him back, this kind of thing. And he's kind of unconscious, not wanting necessarily. We're not shown this desire, I think. I may be wrong about that. I'm not sure. But for Grunty, she also wants to go from the world of spirit. In Banjo Tooie, she also wants to go from the world of spirit to the world of matter, like Bottles does, right? There's also this transition in both of them, both in the victim and the killer, both in Grunty and Bottles. Both of them want to go from the world of spirit to the world of matter. However, in the case of Grunty, she indeed does want this. She is dead, but she wants and is aware of stuff. Right? We could say this, and it doesn't seem to be that she needs to be back for lunch to be with her friends, or that her return to the physical world would be something that would connect her with the world socially, right? She can already hang out with her friends even now, as she's dead. She can talk to her sisters, blah, 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 right? She's already in a social world, even dead. Instead, here it's something she wants. It's that she wants, right? Her sisters want her alive, but not so that they can hang out and have dinner. They're already hanging out, right? As I said, together, even in Grunty's death moment. So the desire to have Grunty back here is not really to be able to be with her, as characters want with Bottles' death, right? It's not really to be with her. What do the sisters want? They seem to simply want to help Grunty, do what Grunty wants to do, whatever it may be. Bottles' family don't simply want Bottles to be alive and then do nothing. They want him back to have dinner and be with them. Grunty's sisters perhaps only want Grunty to be alive for the sake of it. Grunty being alive is good enough. Regardless of what she does, she could have dinner with them or she could not, but it doesn't matter to them. Right? The issue is simply being material, being able to live in the world. That's what it seems. They want her alive for the sake of her being alive and doing anything, really. Again, Bottles and Grunty both perform the same transition from spirit to matter, but for different conditions. Here the issue is desire. Who wants what? Does Bottles want to be alive and have dinner? Or do others want him? Right? Does Grunty want to be alive and have a body? Or do her sisters want it? Right? Who wants what? It seems Bottles expresses the issue of being material for others. And Grunty for herself. Right? So, I'll say that again. In Banjo Tooie, it seems Bottles is expressing an issue regarding being material. He becomes material for others, for the sake of his friends, let's say. And Grunty becomes material for herself, for her own sake. Tutti, so drawing from this, let's say, we could say Tutti in the previous game was about being spiritual or soul, right? Being free, being a free will, a free spirit for herself, for her own being. She wanted to go on an adventure, right? She wanted to be herself, go on an adventure, explore things that she wants, regardless of whether society wants, regardless of whether others want her to explore it or not. Just kind of becoming unlimited by material stuff for her own sake. That's what the first game was telling us. And in the first game, Grunty was about becoming spiritual, right? Becoming a relationship for others. Like becoming a self that others expect. The kind of self, the kind of personality that others expect her to be. So I think, again, she's prioritizing the spirit world, the world of personality and love and desires, but with the goal of those desires being met for the other. Like whatever the others want of her. Something like that. So again, but both things are kind of different. But yeah. Okay, what else? The second game is about, as I said, it's about like transitioning the spiral down towards the water, right? Spiral Mountain goes down towards water. If we say the second game is about descending Spiral Mountain, as I said, and going away from it towards the outside, then we see that it's a game that if you transition down towards Spiral Mountain, you're going down towards water. The pond of water that's underneath it, you could say. And so that's one way to look at it. We're going down towards water. Okay, that's good. But if the upwards path was towards Grunty's mouth, to be eaten from life to death, the downward spiral is about going down towards water from spirit to matter, from death to life. We transition from the water onto the ground through a bridge, a point of crossing from one spiral to what's under it. Well, say that again. From the spiral to what's under it. Upwards, we also meet a bridge, a point of crossing to the other side, within Grunty. So, two bridges. One goes into the mouth, the other goes onto the land outside the spiral. Okay. Then, the water surrounding the spiral is what is crossed with the bridge. One bridge is convex and the other is concave. They seem to be like opposite bridges. Perhaps transitioning from spirit to matter here is transferred as a passage through water, right? You cross the river and go onto land. A process of bathing, perhaps, of going into the water. Grunty's mouth is perhaps different. We see it glowing as if in embers, as if torches of fire are burning inside of it. There are other instances of a mouth that transitions towards embers or a sense of burning, the symbol of the mouth being associated with burning. For instance, in these games, for instance, the mouth towards the inferno. Also, Grunty's own mouth inside the cavern, which leads to a world of lava. And also, as another example, most mouths in Grunty's cavern, which seem to suggest a red, hellish fire with their eyes, as if entering their mouth, you're entering a red world of infernal fires. Pterodactyland is a giant mouth that devours you. Just listing examples here. Pterodactyland is a giant mouth that devours you. You're devoured by a dinosaur, by a huge fish, also in these games. Being devoured seems to be something that this game does to take you to another world, perhaps a slightly scary and hell-like world. You enter Mumbo's skull through its mouth too, another image of death, going towards hell, perhaps. Welder shoots fire out of the mouth too, so also the mouth gets associated with fire and breathing fire being inside the mouth being somehow a place where fire is, where fire exists. Somehow it's like the mouth is hell. Hell is associated to fire here in this game. Going into Grunty's mouth, I'd suggest, is a process of entering into fire and passing through a bathing of fire. This bathing kills you and enters you into the world of death. When you descend, you go down towards water, right? So then water perhaps does the opposite. The bathing in water brings life, like it would bring to a plant or something. It brings life and it takes you to the world of material stuff. Water in this game does seem to perhaps associate to life in this way, as it makes trees grow and flowers and things like that. And within water is sometimes hidden a secret world of ancient life and wisdom, a paradise. That's one symbol associated to water in these games. For example, entering into water leads you to the world of Atlantis, a world that evokes... entering into Atlantis is like it's like a world that evokes a sort of heaven, with paradisical harp music in the background to suggest it's a hidden world of heaven. So heaven is underwater. This paradise underwater you find under there, right? You find this place. And hell then is fire here in this game, and paradise might be water here. Water takes you towards life, paradise. Water is what the dinosaur wants to bring life to him in this game, and water brings health to the pigs. It brings wherever water touches, it kind of heals and brings life to people in this game. It brings life. This issue of having water at the bottom of the spiral and possibly fire at the top, then, is what Spiral Mountain does. It's what it exhibits, this transition from fire to water. It transitions from fire to the bottom, water, or from water to fire. Both ways. Water is cold generally, and fire is hot, as symbols, let's say. So that's also some sort of a duality between them. There are instances of this in the game that I'd like to explore. Treasure Trove Cove is a body of earth that grows upwards and reaches a spiral staircase like Spiral Mountain, which ascends to a lighthouse, which presumably has a torch inside it, burning with fire to illuminate. Below this spiral staircase, towards the edges of the spiral, is a body of water, of course, surrounding the whole mass. We have a similar image here, then, I think. This level also shows us the image of a castle, a castle that rises out of the waters, and also a sort of cave mountain that also rises from the water, right? That little mountain that rises from the water. Grunty's castle is a castle. The image of a castle is present here. It has the turrets on the top, etc., windows on the hat. So Grunty's castle, Grunty's lair, is like shaped like a stone medieval castle, and it also has a body of water. So it's a castle that rises from a body of water in some way. You ascend from water towards a castle in this game. It's interesting as well to me that Shark Food Island, this volcanic island, yeah, precisely. Is it a volcano? Like, it's shaped like a conic sort of shape, typical of volcanoes, which might place the top of the mountain as a symbolic space for volcanic lava or fire, heat, right? So again, we have water and then ascending up towards fire in some way, if we were to understand it as a volcanic mountain. Gobi's Valley, right, another level, has a similar theme. Okay, some more examples here. Gobi's Valley. A castle, or in this case a pyramid, some sort of a monumental structure of sorts, which rises from surrounding water. And okay, so that's that. Okay, and then inside the pyramid is a star. Above the other pyramids are images of a sun, and another one has an image of Kazooie in a Horus shape, like holding a disc, the way Horus might hold the sun disc in its often impersonations and icons. A sun, a star, a sun, fire. Above the water surrounding. It could be that the game associates fire to the top of the building and water to the bottom. Fire touches the sky, water touches the earth. Indeed, water might be a passageway towards the earth, or the material, as fire might be a passageway upwards, above the earth and away from it, away from matter. The associations in this game seem to have associated fire, or the top of the mountain, with food, joy, life. You enter the house. The bottom of the spiral is about crossing the threshold outside of the house. You're fully outside of the spiral. There is cold, tragedy, death. Death is the passageway through which we get to life. We cross that. Life, the flame of life, and happiness and heat is the door we cross to go into death. We cross it. These themes manifest in the game. For example, as we said, we have themes of food acquisition, of acquiring life by preventing others from having it. Conga keeps oranges away from others. Juju asks to be fed. We have a theme of things rising from the water to life. Clanker is trapped underwater and can transition back to life. So does Snorkel, trapped in the water but rises up, transitions up towards life from the water. is rescued. They navigate water, transition through it. Another issue may be, for example, treasure. Captain Blubber has used its ship to navigate waters and collect treasure. Captain Blubber has done that. This treasure has now sunk to the depths of its waters. Rusty Bucket also is searching for treasure, so both ships have a relationship to treasure. Rusty Bucket, judging from the maps on its navigation room, in Treasure Trove Cove, it is searching for treasure in Treasure Trove Cove, whose name also implies treasure. So, just a second. Okay, Rusty Bucket has a map of Treasure Trove Cove with an X on it, so it suggests it's looking for treasure in this place. Right? We would think, probably, if that's its destination. The treasure trove. Okay. So again, it's as if there is something of value in the navigation of water. Navigating water brings you to life, and it brings you to treasure. You find treasure inside the water. Value. Water reaches to treasure. We navigate water and then reach it. We have the theme of houses of spirit, tombs, in this game. So, Mad Monster Mansion is a place where spirits rise from the earth, a house where spirit is inside. Gobi's Valley is also a place of pyramids, therefore we could think here in this case tombs. Pyramids tend to be tombs to dead people or spirit. So again, we have houses filled with spirit is another theme that somehow expresses itself in this game. We enter this place, this house, and greet spirit or death, right? The death world, the spirit world. The spirit world is inside of the house somehow. Amongst all these themes, spirit transitioning to matter is best exemplified in Click Clock Wood. So we've got these themes of water on the one hand leading to like life, and life as in the material world, plants growing, something of treasure found inside of life. And then inside of the house that's outside of water, we enter into fire, death. All of these themes, spirit transitioning to matter, are best exemplified in the level called Click Clock Wood in this game. And that's it. Okay, thanks, bye.